Heavenly Father, we just thank you. We give you all the glory and the praise. Thank you for everything they've been doing in our lives. We just commit this conversation into your hands and your name be glorified. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So good evening, everyone. Welcome. How's everybody's day been?
Good, actually.
Yeah?
It's been really good.
Cool. So we're just going to jump right into it today. So we are going to be looking at the story of Jonah. Was anybody able to read it? I know it was a bit short notice, but was anybody able to read it? Is anybody familiar with the story of Jonah?
From what I know that God asked him to go to Nineveh. No, is it Nineveh?
Yeah.
Nineveh. Yikes, so no one's correcting me these parts. Anywho, Nineveh, and then he decided not to. He decided to go in opposite direction. Is he from Tarshish? I'm not quite sure. Is he?
No, he's not from Tarshish.
Nothing to do with that? Okay.
But he was going to go to Tarshish.
Yeah, see, that's it, yeah. So he was going there instead of going to Nineveh. And then he decided to get on a boat, and I remember it was like a massive, terrible storm. And then people on the boat were like, "I'll pray to your God, blah, blah, so that the storm can be calmed." And he was like, "Oh, it's not going to be calmed because he's basically the cause of the storm." And then he basically volunteered to throw himself aboard so that they didn't die. And then whilst he threw himself overboard, the storm calmed, but then he got swallowed by a giant whale. And then he was in the whale for 3 days, and then the whale threw him up on the beach. And then there's like a whole story about it's like a worm and there's like a leaf or something like that. And then it provides shade, and then God takes it away. And then he goes back to him and he decides to be obedient and go back. That's all I remember.
No, yeah, that's like solid. That's quite detailed.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, like
I read that a while ago.
You said it. Oh, that's quite cool. So Abby, like, what do you think causes us to disobey God?
Because his word isn't always what we want, and it's like we put our own desires over what he desires for us.
Yeah,
essentially, I think that's what the main cause is.
That's true. No, that's good. And like, I know that we're discussing disobedience and like running away from God, but when I read the book of Jonah again, I learned that there's actually like a deeper lesson that we can learn. And it's not even just about like disobedience, but it's also about heart posture. Like, I noticed a lot that Jonah's heart posture was a bit this guy was a stubborn, stiff-necked person who lacked compassion, and he was very irrational. Every single time he just wants to die. He would rather die. Like, he's very suicidal. Like, he'd rather die. Like, even how he entered the water in the first place, he basically asked them to put him in the water and all this kind of stuff. But so we're opening up to Jonah chapter 1. LB, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. What version would you like me to read?
NKJV, please.
Lovely.
All the NLT warriors are not here.
Okay, I'm going to start. So, Jonah's disobedience. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai, saying, "Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry out against it, for their wickedness has come up before me." But Jonah arose to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare and went down into it to go with them to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord.
Yeah, you can stop there. Thank you so much. It's actually very interesting because he directly disobeyed God with his chest. And shall I tell you what? I didn't know this because in my study Bible it has like a map of like whatever their land looked like back then. And so on the map it has Tarshish, it has Joppa, and it has Nineveh and all this kind of stuff. And it's so mad because God was telling this guy to go to Nineveh from where he was, which was probably, for argument's sake, let's just say that was just like a 45-minute drive away. And then Tarshish, it was like you have to go to the airport to collect a plane to go to the other side of the state. Because I was just like, this guy, when he said he was going to disobey God, he said, "I am going to disobey you with my chest because I don't want to go to Nineveh." And from my understanding, I don't know where the Bible scholars are at, but from my understanding, So Nineveh was a very like wicked nation. I think they had also done stuff to the Hebrews and the Israelites or whatever. I think that's what I read on Google. So I don't know if it's right. But anyway, one thing I know for sure is that they were very wicked people. And so the whole point of Jonah's assignment was to go to Nineveh to kind of like tell them that because of your wickedness, you're going to perish. Like God literally told Jonah, go there and cry out against their wickedness, if that makes sense. And Jonah said, I'd rather not. Basically, that's basically what he said. I'd rather not. I'm gonna go to Tarshish instead. He's on his voyage, and obviously like God sends the winds and the storms and everything, and like there's like people who don't believe in God who worship other gods like on this ship as well with Jonah, and everybody's like, everybody pray to your own God, pray to your own God. I'm trying to like say the story so that we have context, but like pray to your own God and all this kind of stuff. But Jonah had gone to the bottom of the ship and he was sleeping, and then one of the people had to go get him and be like, you need to wake up and pray to your God. And it's so funny because in the text, when they're referring to the gods of the other people, it's a small g, but when they were referring to Jonah's God, it was with a big G. And then obviously Jonah wakes up now and everybody's like casting lots and like throwing all their cargo off the ship because obviously it's getting a lot. And they now start casting lots, which is kind of like ip dip do, like kind of like situation. And then obviously the lot was cast onto Jonah, and Jonah was like, yeah, just throw me into the sea because it's my fault that this is happening. And it's so mad because Jonah's disobedience actually put people in danger. Like your disobedience can put other people in danger. Like obviously, like, you know, this is very, very dramatic. Jonah's story, Jonah's just a dramatic person, but like we have to be careful. Like if God is like telling us to do something, even though, because in our heads, like you said, Abby, earlier, you said that we disobey God because obviously we don't like think the way that he does, or maybe what he's asking us to do is not what we want to do. But then it's like we only have the lens that we have. So like obviously as a human, I can only see right now in this position, I can only see Abby, and in the corner of my eye I can see a bit of LB, Fola and Josh, but I can't see behind me. I can't see beyond this window because obviously the blinds are closed, but God sees everything. So like obviously in my vision right now that I have, if God asked me to do something, like according to me and the way that I think and my perspective, I'm gonna be like, nah, like this doesn't make sense. But God actually sees the bigger picture, and so you don't know that your disobedience could cause somebody else's downfall. Your disobedience, sometimes your obedience is somebody else's breakthrough. Like for example, there have been times where maybe like God will be like, oh, I need you to go share a word with someone, or I need you to give this homeless person money, or I need you to do this, I need you to do that. And if you don't do it, then somebody else is going to be suffering. You know, I remember all the people who have obeyed God concerning my life. I see the value in their obedience because I needed it at the time. Otherwise, I just would have just felt like nobody cares about me, nobody loves me, you know, just in that spiral thing. But when someone finds it in their heart to obey God, to encourage you, you're just like, you know what, yeah, I can go on another day. Do you get what I mean? So yeah, I don't know, does anybody have anything that they want to like chip in or add whilst we're here?
Yeah, you know what's so funny? Because I feel like there's a time when we've all been disobedient, right? And then you know how everything's going wrong for Jonah. People will be like, oh, where's God? God, why have you forsaken me? Look what is going on. You say you're faithful, but really, truly, where you are is not where you're supposed to be. And all of that commotion happening was God trying to redirect Jonah's steps back to where he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So it's so funny, like you said about perspective. Like, from Jonah's perspective, if he didn't know, like he knew that he disobeyed God, but some people aren't consciously aware of it. So all of the commotion and kerfuffle going around is God trying to redirect you. And sometimes we get, it's the devil's doing. The devil is really, guys need to pray harder. Like the devil is attacking, but really, truly, it's actually God allowing that to happen. Based that these are consequences of your actions, and is trying to have mercy on you, literally, to send you back to the right place. Because imagine all the people that would have died if he didn't go back to Nineveh. Like. Yeah, I just find that interesting.
And it's so mad that you say that, because even in this story, God is the one that caused the tempest to happen on the sea. So like, it's actually so mad. But I have a question, because obviously when I was reading it, it literally said, obviously when you read those first few verses that you just read now, it said that Jonah left God's presence. So I wanted to ask, in today's world now, can we leave God's presence? Because obviously we're in the new covenant now. Just obviously that was the old covenant. It's very easy to leave the presence of God, but now that can we leave the presence of God? Follow, I want you to answer the question.
Okay. Well, I guess if the Holy Spirit was withdrawn from a person, then yeah, I think it's possible. But outside of that, I mean, I guess like we're technically always in the presence of God, but yeah, the only way I think it's possible is if the Holy Spirit is withdrawn from a person, or they don't have it in the first place.
So can the Holy Spirit be withdrawn from someone?
It's conceivable. Whether or not it's actually like a possibility.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Josh, do you think we can leave the presence of God?
I agree with everything.
Yeah, Abby? No, you have to answer.
No,
sorry.
Honestly, you're not getting it. I'm looking at him like, that's not good enough. I agree. What's that? Please.
I don't think that's possible. I think we can think that we're out of God's presence, but because we have the Holy Spirit, God's presence is always with us. It's just our perception. That's what I think.
Okay, cool. Abby?
Yeah, I don't think we can, because like the whole point in the new covenant was that God sent his son to die for us. So no matter what, like our sins are covered. So yeah, I don't think we can leave the presence of God.
Yeah. Okay. You said something that was quite cool actually, but we'll come back to you. LV.
Can we leave the presence of God? I don't think he can. I think the question is a massive factor. The only time it may look like if God has left someone, or like we can think that God's presence is not with someone, is if they actually gave their life to Christ to start with, because we understand it's a heart posture thing. Like it says, it's in Romans. I'm really paraphrasing that. If you confess with your mouth and declare, confess with your mouth, declare with your heart. Is it I butchered that.
No, it might be right.
Yeah, that Jesus Christ is Lord, then you'll be saved, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but we don't actually know someone's heart, right? Only God does. So in that moment, if you actually have genuinely given your heart to Christ, then I don't think that I know the Holy Spirit will never leave you, because you'll be working with the Holy Spirit. But if you're actually giving your life to Christ and it's just a mouth thing and not a heart thing, then it begs to question like if the Holy Spirit was ever in you in the first place. Yeah. So I don't ever think we can leave that. I don't think we can grieve the Holy Spirit, but I don't think we can ever leave God's presence. Yeah.
Because his presence is everywhere, like he's inside of you, so I really don't know, can you like leave yourself? Do you get what I mean?
Well,
no, defend the answer.
No, go on.
Okay, if you were to attach your spiritual self from your physical self, then
that's
it's technically possible. Well, it's death of the physical, but you're still alive in the spiritual. The spirit doesn't cease, it doesn't die.
Oh, bad.
No, that's actually a valid
okay,
point.
but that's death then. Like,
yeah, but no, but it's But then how do you? Oh gosh, can you really? That's crazy. But I wanted to piggyback off of what Josh was saying, and how he was saying that you might think that you've left the presence of God, but you haven't because of your perception. And I think, do you think we can leave the will of God?
Oh, that's good.
Instead of leaving God's presence.
I think off track.
Yeah, because you're still you can go off track and come back. But I don't know if you can. Actually, no. Elaborate.
I think you can go off track, but it's like it's up to you to fulfill the will of God. Like, I don't think that's something God can force. I think that's where your free will comes into play. But it's just that just know that God's will is there for you, but you have to acknowledge and follow it. But that's like
9. Fola, could you please read verse 9 for me? Jonah chapter 1 verse 9.
Jonah answered, Jonah chapter 1 verse 9.
Yeah.
Jonah answered, I am a Hebrew, and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the land.
9 again, okay. So he said to them, I am a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land.
Okay, so you fear the Lord.
But clearly.
Who wants to discuss this point here?
Yeah, you can see that his understanding of fearing the Lord is different, I guess, to what God's understanding would be, because that would include obedience, right? And he's clearly been disobedient, but he's still arguing his case, like, which is very, very interesting.
Cool.
Very interesting.
Let's get into the response of the non-believers. So, Josh, if you read from verse 10.
Then the men were exceedingly afraid and said to him, why have you done this? For the men knew that he fled from the presence of the Lord, because he had told them. Then they said to him, what shall we do to you that the sea may be calm fast? For the sea was growing more tempestuous.
And he said unto them, take me up and cast me forth into the sea. So shall the sea be calm unto you, for I know that for my sake this great tempest is upon you. Nevertheless the men rowed hard to bring it to the land, but they could not, for the sea wrought and was tempestuous against them.
Therefore they cried out to the Lord and said, we pray, O Lord, please do not let us perish for this man's life, and do not charge us with the innocent blood, for you, O Lord, have done as it pleased you. So they picked up Jonah and threw him into the sea, and the sea ceased from its raging.
Then the men feared the Lord exceedingly and offered a sacrifice to the Lord and took vows. Now the Lord had prepared a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights.
Wow.
At least they got converted.
That's what I'm saying. His disobedience actually led people,
Which is funny.
I wrote that down. I was like, how did someone's disobedience? But I guess that just shows that God is God. Like, you want to disobey me, but I am God, and I know what I'm doing. So continue. So what do you guys get from those few verses that we just read? Like, yeah, go on then, Josh.
You can't really run away from like the duties that God is giving you. Somehow, some way, you're gonna end up doing it. So he like all that trouble he went through, like being thrown into the. He could have just.
Oh god.
He could have just done it the first time.
Imagine that dripping wet, going back to the.
Just stress yourself out.
Oh god.
That's crazy.
But do you not think we do that to ourselves sometimes?
Yeah, because we're here laughing. And
we're here laughing, but there's been times when God has told us no. I mean, it's actually embarrassing.
Folo, what did you get from these few verses that we've just read?
I guess in verse 15, like the moment they threw him into the sea, it stopped raging. So I guess from that you could say that like if you finally are on God's course, then things will go back to normal to some extent. Maybe, yeah.
Interesting. Abby?
Yeah, just like what everyone else has said, it's just like we can't try and run away from the will of God and then expect everything to be fine and dandy. Like it's just not gonna run. Because he'll come back and be like, hey, I asked you to do something, why aren't you doing it, kind of thing. So yeah, we'll eventually have to answer for ourselves.
It kind of reminds me of like if my mom told me to wash the plates and she sees that I didn't wash the plates, and I get an earful. I should have just washed the plates instead of making that call.
No, for real.
I had to do it in the end.
Yeah.
But
And
at
then
the time it's like,
oh. No.
you know what I mean?
What about you, LB?
Yeah, it's just nice to see like how God's plan is never just for ourselves, if that makes sense. So him being disobedient didn't just have effects on him, but it had effects on other people. So like you said, our obedience and disobedience all have consequences. It's like a chain reaction. So whether you obey and whether you don't obey, there's a consequence of that as well. And it's just interesting to see like the impact. And also, it's like sometimes when we feel that God's will isn't right, or when we feel that what he's asking us to do isn't correct, and like sometimes we base our obedience on emotions because that's what we feel and it's real, right? So you mentioned how in Nineveh that some people they did horrible things to Hebrews, and his feelings of frustration and anger is justified. Like you never know, it could have been a family friend or whoever, like anyone close to him that they could have hurt, and he's putting his feelings above God's will. And it's just really like careful and techy just to make sure that even when God is asking us to do something, sometimes it might not always feel comfortable. And that's like the nice thing to say, but when you're faced with your emotions, like it's hard, because even like reading Jonah, we're laughing at Jonah, but we've all done that. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like just being like consciously aware that being obedient sometimes isn't always comfortable, but it's important, because either way, like Jonah, he ran away and he still had to come back. He still had to do what he was asked. So yeah, just that for me.
It's so mad because after he left the presence of God, he just became so suicidal. Like he literally was like, yeah, just throw me into the water. Like he literally asked for them to, like, what was he expecting? I think it's like he knew he had disobeyed God and that he tried to run away from God. Clearly it wasn't working. And then he was like, oh, maybe it's better for me to die then. And even then it didn't, nothing happened. And it's just, it's not good, like, because when you disobey and you try to do your own thing, he tried to do his own thing and it didn't work out at all. Have you ever tried to do your own thing outside of God's will and it just flops? Like that's literally what's happened to Jonah. So anyway, now so he's been thrown into the water, and Jonah's probably thinking, oh yeah, finally my wish is my command, that I'm about to die. And God has sent a fish, and the fish has swallowed him, and he's now in the belly of the fish.
Imagine someone to ask you, where were you for the past 3 days? Like, how do you even begin to explain that I was in the fish? Will they not look at you like...
Well, you never know, like, you might have got to explore the interior or something.
It's like, how is he not consumed
in the dark,
by that as well?
In the dark.
And I think in your spare time, you guys should definitely read
What is this, interior designing?
In your spare time, you guys should definitely read the like Jonah's prayer, because you can learn so much from it. Like literally, I was just like rah. And one thing that I realized is that it was even a miracle that he made it out of the fish alive, because we just think, oh, he was just in the belly of the fish, but fish needs to, in order for a fish to live or to survive, it needs to be in water. So he was basically like, in my notes I literally asked like, what, so was he just drowning over and over again? Like if you read his prayer, like like I'll even read like some of the things that he said. So in Jonah chapter 2 verse 5, it now says, the waters surrounded me, even to my soul. The deep closed around me. Weeds were wrapped around my head. I went down to the moorings of the mountains. The earth with its bars closed behind me forever. Like, he said, yeah, you have brought me up my life from the pit. Like, this guy was in the sea for 3 days.
You know what's so bad? Like, deep in it, like, because the water is salty, like, his skin must have been, like, peely, because of, like, osmosis. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's actually, and weeds wrapped around his head. Would you not be thinking, God, like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, like.
And it's, like,
claustrophobic and
because
dark.
he's inside the belly.
Because when you look at it in the children's book, it's like...
He looks happy, he's just chilling there in his little robe, right? In his robe.
Just watching the fishes swim by.
Honestly, like, that's not what... Oh, it's not a pretty picture. That's actually mad. Nah, that's... techie. Very deep.
Honestly, for 3 days, like, can one even survive in water for 3 days? Have you guys ever gone swimming and you're like, oh yeah, let's see who can hold their breath for the longest, and then it's like, I can only maybe max 1 minute, and we're up like, like this guy was there for 3 days, no scuba kits or whatever is those.
What was he gonna hold on to?
Yeah, like,
oh, you know, the
how-
water goes
yeah,
up his
nose,
nose.
that's what I'm saying.
And
Like,
the whale must have been like flipping over,
Yeah.
like, and he would have. Oh,
who
that's
knows what the whale was
long
eating
day.
and all the other things that
Long
was
day.
entering the belly of the whale or the fish. I don't know.
day. This prayer came from a
Yeah,
deep
he
place.
was desperate.
A
And it's
deep
so mad
place.
because he said, where did he go? Okay, so when my soul, so this is verse 7, when my soul fainted within me, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer went up to you into your holy temple. Those who regard worthless idols forsake their own mercy. But I will sacrifice to you with the voice of thanksgiving. I will pay what I have vowed. Salvation is of the Lord. And in that moment there, you can sense that there is a sense of humility that we haven't seen from Jonah in this whole story. Like his heart posture, out of a place of desperation, right? And the need for salvation. He postured himself in a humble way. And then as soon as he released those words, God said, so the Lord spoke to the fish and it vomited Jonah onto dry land. Like, how did he end up on dry land? Because this guy was saying that he was in the deep, he went down to the moorings of the mountains. So how did the moorings of the mountain and dry land is not in the same place?
Because whales don't go that close unless they're dead, innit? Like their bodies like raw up on the surface like whales.
Yeah, if they go up on like the
They can die like going in like
beach,
yeah. They can die like it makes like that's just
So-
mad.
Was it even a whale? Was it a whale?
It just says fish.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I just assumed it was a whale.
Yeah, people always assume it's a whale because that's what was in our Bibles, in our kids' Bibles.
This is the only thing that makes sense to us humans.
No.
We can't
Yeah.
imagine a huge fish like
Could have
that.
been a jellyfish. You never know.
Could be a
Fabulous.
shark.
Could have been an octopus.
A shark could have chomped him up, bro.
No, but if it's
It's a
on
fish,
the order of
though.
God, then it's gonna behave.
I like that.
Oh, this guy's so annoying.
But yeah, like in the time of desperation, and I don't know what it is about children of God, but we always have to wait for that desperate moment before we can submit and turn from our wicked ways. Like if he had just been humble from the beginning, you wouldn't have to experience your soul and the water reaching your soul. Like that's so deep. Like guys, I promise you, read the prayer that he prayed in your free time, because we didn't even get to go through everything. But yeah,
I've got a question.
go for it.
Just so we can like make this practical.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give to Jonah before he decided to go to Tarshish? Like, say at that point when he was at that junction of like making the decision to flee
This
God.
man's experience doesn't compare to like him humbling himself to like warn the people
Mm.
because he definitely got humbled.
Mm-hmm.
What about you guys? What would you guys say?
Children got eaten by a fish.
That's actually embarrassing. Man of God, you know. One thing I just realised is that disobedience doesn't sometimes start off big. Like disobedience can start in the little things. Because even like with our parents, right? Like, I don't know, but we've all been there. Like when you test the boundaries, small, and then like, oh, you've done that, you got away with that. Okay, cool. Let me try this now. And you try this, and then they react. It's like, oh, okay, I can do this, but I can't do this. Do you know what I mean? So again, disobedience, like in regards to God as well, sometimes it doesn't start off on a grand scale. Like God introducing you saying no, and you're going in a boat, going the other direction. But I can literally start off with like you being disobedient in the small things. So like God saying honor your parents, and then you're disrespecting them, or like just in a small way, and that's how like it gets bigger. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I also think, why do you want to disobey God? Like, what is the reason behind that? And also, like, do you trust God? Because if you trust Him, then, you know, sometimes you just need to know that you trust Him. Because there have been times, I don't know, there might be times when your parents might ask you to do something and you're thinking like, oh, like maybe I'm like scared to do it, or I don't want to do it for whatever reason. But then you think in your head like, but my mum would never put me in danger. Do you get what I mean? Like, okay, I know that my mum wants the best for me. I know that my dad wants the best for me. So I can trust them and do like
What they ask.
what they ask of me. And then also, again, I feel like even before he disobeyed God, Jonah did not have a correct heart posture. Because, anyway, as we get into the story, like, move into the next chapters, like, you'll see that this guy just had a lack of compassion. But I would just say to him, do you trust God? Or do you not trust God?
Gee, I can tell you, my parents will make me do stuff they don't want to do.
Would you not do the same with your kids?
No.
That's a lie.
Offloading all the hard stuff to the...
Yeah, like, I don't want to wash the plates. I just like, you don't want to wash the plates. Of course, I'd get my kids to wash the plate. I just
I wash
cook.
my own plate
And the pot.
and my pot that I'm using to make the food with.
Yeah.
Makes life easier and more efficient. No, but I've got a question though. Let's say it's dark and it's cold outside and it's night time. Let's say you now wash clothes, and you've got like your radiators inside of this room, and obviously you get outside and it's dark and cold.
This sounds personal.
No, just a question, isn't it?
Okay.
Let's say your mum don't like you spreading clothes inside the house, but like common sense and facts would tell you to spread wet, cold clothes inside the house rather than outside.
Yeah.
Your mum starts screaming, if you don't listen to me, you're disobeying me, you get me. But you know yourself that it's common facts and common sense and knowledge to spread the clothes in a warm place where it would actually dry. Which one would you do? Even if you explain it to them like that as well.
Is it urgent that you need the clothes outside? I mean,
At that time of the night as well.
So you need the clothes outside?
No.
Yeah, then
You
if,
just
for
wait
peace
till
of mind,
tomorrow
just put it
morning.
outside and in the morning just take it inside.
No, but I'm not there in the morning. I'm at work.
Then before you go to
Did this
work.
actually happen?
Nah,
This is personal. I said it. You're trying to turn it into a therapy
This
session.
is not before I go to work. I don't have time.
Okay.
Okay.
From when I'm running for buses, nah.
I don't know. About that one.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Sometimes obedience it's all well and good, but sometimes obedience isn't
Thank
logic,
you.
and I feel like we need to like kind of, use logic.
Thank you.
Yeah, but then I think, but the thing is, and when we get to the bottom of this story, you'll understand that God is God and he can ask you to do whatever he wants you to do, to be honest, whether it's logical to you or not. Because I'm a very logical person as well. I'm a very logical thinker, and me and God, we just used to bump heads because what you're saying is not logical. Do you get what I mean?
But can I add, like how we try to use logic to discern God, but logic always changes.
Exactly.
Like logic always changes. Like now, okay, we can take the train, we can take once upon a time, logic was getting a horse and attaching it to a chariot and going down the road. Do you know what I mean? Or using a typewriter, and then, or instead of handwriting, or using those, that stamp things, those seals to seal a letter. That was logic back then. That was the fastest method of, sending a letter, but now it's texting. So logic always changes to what we think is efficient. But God always has had the maximum logic since the beginning. But we just are limited, like you said, to our surroundings. Which is interesting.
I was just referring to parents, by the way.
No,
God.
no, but
No, because sometimes obviously we want to obey our parents and everything, but there's some times where you just can't.
yeah.
Like you just physically cannot, because what they're saying
Facts.
is not. It doesn't make any
Right.
sense.
Yes, Rachel. Why? No, you're
So,
not needed.
no, but obviously there's one of the commandments is to obey your mother and father, and it's one of the few commandments that comes with a promise so that your life may be long and all this kind of stuff.
You love saying that one.
No, but the fact is, if obeying your parents wasn't such a big deal, then it wouldn't be there. Do you get what I mean? And also your parents do have a role to play in your life, number one, and God respects us honouring our parents, because after God, in a way, it's your parents, and so we need to, even as I'm speaking, because I used to struggle a lot with this obedience thing. Like I had to have a serious conversation with God about this obey your mother and father situation, because I was just like, I'm not having it. Like there'll be times where I'm just like, this doesn't make sense, and I tried to speak to God about it. I even tried to find scripture, like God said no. He said no, like there's a reason. Like there's a reason for everything. Obviously there have been times where things were a bit that's a bit, you know, irrational on your parent on my parents' part. But at the same time, regardless of whatever, they're your parents. So if they ask you to do something, you do it, unless it's like going to go against the will of God, yeah, then in that sense, like say if it was something spiritual, like God's telling you to go to one church and then your parents are like, no, I want you to stay in this church, but you've heard God clearly that you need to go in that scenario, then yeah, by all means, like follow God, you get it. But sometimes we just get annoyed with our parents because we don't want to wash plates, or we want to stay out longer, or we want to be with this friend, but then they want you to go here but you want to go there, and all, like it's very like in the grand scheme of life is not that deep. But then one day when I was really trying to understand this obedience thing with parents and stuff, God brought me to the story of David. And if anybody knows what it means to suffer and obey someone that is supposed to be your dad and supposed to love you and all this kind of stuff, then it's David. And David served. He still served. Through it all, he served. And what did that do for him? God saw it and favoured him. Do you know what I mean? So you have to think about it. Like, sometimes I'm just like, okay, you know what, God, my parents have asked me to do this thing. Personally, I don't want to do it. But because of you and the respect that I have for God and the respect that I should have for my parents as well, I will still do it. Do you get what I mean? As difficult as it is. Like, I will run to God. I'll be like, God, how dare they do this to me? Da, 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 da. Like, yeah, God will hear it from me. But me, I know that I'm still going to go and do what they have told me to do.
Okay, but look at it like this, you.
You really don't want to obey, do you?
Nah, if it doesn't make sense, I'm not gonna follow it. Like, look at it like this, yeah. Now, they've said their point. You now said your point. Your point makes sense. Theirs doesn't.
But that's to
They're
you.
No. This is factual.
No. I hear that. Yeah,
This is factual.
Yeah,
And they're not listening to reason. You now ask other people in the house who also agree with you, but they don't want to listen to reason.
No, I hear that.
And they're now saying, if you don't listen to me, you're disobeying me. And then you now say, if I'm disobeying you, it's your fault.
Who said that? Man.
When you said
That's
that,
too far. Abby that was supporting you has now back. That was too far.
That's how it is.
You know what it is, right? I've realised, like, even with my parents, like, obviously as I'm getting older, there's certain things now, like, that certain things I just want to apologise for. Because you know how sometimes, like, they say, I'll say sorry because it's like it's what they want you to do. But I've realised that me saying sorry is not genuine, because I'm lying if I'm saying sorry, because I don't mean sorry. But what I try to do is don't be disrespectful, but have an amicable conversation with them. So even in the process of like saying your point or they're saying their point, like, you need to be respectful. Because at work, right, if there's a disagreement, you're not going to start being disrespectful to your colleague just because you're having a disagreement over something. You'll still maintain respect and you'll still maintain the boundaries, because when they start labeling you as aggressive, like, you just don't want that label. Do you know what I mean? So you still remain respectful whilst trying to overcome like the discussion or the point you're trying to deal with. So even with me, like with my parents, like, I try to like, okay, you know, I'm gonna come back, because clearly we're not seeing eye to eye at this point. Like, it's getting a bit heated. We'll come back and we'll talk about it, even though it might be awkward. Like, you see them in the kitchen, it's like, you've been
scratching your head.
you know, or you don't go in until they've come out or whatever. But like, you still need to remain like respectful. Do you know what I mean? That's the important part. It's okay to have disagreements, but obviously remaining respectful is the key part.
Just to add to what LB was saying about having amicable conversations, sometimes you can have the amicable conversation and it will go the way that you wanted. Sometimes you can be respectful and it still won't go the way that you wanted it to go. True. And at that point, you're still going to have to obey your parents. At least then in your head, you know that you've done what you needed to do respectfully. But it takes a level of maturity and also a level of like sacrifice as well, and humility in a way as well, to still obey. Because it's your pride that is like, it's your pride that is like, like, I need to have the last say, I need to go my way, and there have been times when I've tried to get my mum to reason with me, because I know that what I'm saying makes sense, and then she won't listen to me, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. I just wanted to explain it to you from my perspective, and she'll still, even after I've said everything that I've said, you still want to do it your way. Okay, yeah, that's fine. We'll just do it your way then, because I've gotten to the point where I'm just like, I can't be asked to fight anybody. And then sometimes, even though we've decided to go with Mommy's idea now, later on down the line,
so personal, man.
later on down the line, she'll be like, oh. The worst part is they will say it as if it's their idea. And I was like, wait, God, this is what I was trying to say to you before. Do you get what I mean? And sometimes you'll go down with their idea, and then you're doing it, and then even you yourself, you feel stupid. You're like, oh, okay.
It makes sense.
It makes sense. They'll be like, and then they'll be looking at you, and they'll be looking at them and be like, okay, yeah, whatever, yeah, you can tell me that you told me so, like, let's just move forward.
Yeah.
But it all requires humility, because sometimes you may think that, have you ever been in a situation where you feel like you're in the right? Like, you know,
Like,
you're confident that you're right.
My mum will ask me to work the plants even though it's raining. I'm like, rain.
Yeah, you know,
Work the plants.
you know when you now question it and they'll be like, "Shall you know about it?"
You want to fight me? Okay, guys, we're not here to talk about our parents. But there have been times where you felt like you were right, and then it turns out that actually you were wrong.
Wait, can I add something?
Go
Do you
for
think
it.
this is the same attitude we have with God sometimes? Because it's like,
Yeah.
deep it though, like our parents are here, like, you know, my mum was like, after God is your parents, like they love to throw that stuff. And I know I'm gonna throw it around too as well. But it's like, we argue sometimes with our parents and we think we're right. But do you think sometimes we do that with God? Because in our minds, like, no, but God, I'm right, like this. And then later down the line, it's like, oh, right, like, God said this, and then...
No, but do you know what the difference is that God will always remain right at the end. Your parents? No, not all the time.
Please, are you in sales or something?
No,
Like,
wait, have you
guy-
ever like
This guy is
he's like he's in sales
No,
trying
no,
to pitch an
no.
idea.
I have my own clothes analogy. This actually happened. It was gonna rain. I knew it was gonna rain that day. My dad told me to spread the clothes outside. But I was like, Dad, it's gonna rain. He told me to spread it outside. I spread it outside. It started spitting. I said, Dad, now I'm having to run. I'm bearing in mind I'm short. My line is very long and tall. I had to be jumping to get the clothes down. And he was like, he didn't really apologize. My dad doesn't apologize. But his step was you just have to take it on the chin.
Oh, God.
Say, God, my reward is in heaven.
It's more accurate than this.
No, legit, my reward is in heaven.
And
Because
let's move on.
sometimes, no, but the thing is, yeah, God wouldn't want you to not spread the clothes. Do you get what I mean? I think the best you could have done is try to have an amicable conversation. Be like, God, Dad, I looked at the weather forecast today and it's going to rain today. Do you still want me to spread it outside? If he still says go and spread it outside, then you go and spread it outside. As far as you're concerned, I've obeyed. If you get it. In his heart, he knows that, oh, maybe I should have listened to my child. You get what I mean? But like on your part, you've spread the clothes, and I think God would still want you to spread the clothes. That's the thing. Like a lot of us are out here like ready to fight our parents and all this kind of stuff. But no, God wants you to do what your parents have asked you to do. Do you get it?
That's interesting.
But like, I don't want this to be about our parents, because this is not about our parents.
I should suffer.
Long and short of it, just suffer.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
It's not suffering though.
It's
But, like,
humility.
Yeah.
Humility is
And it's hard.
Oh,
It's a
you know
lot.
them ones. Oh, it just hurts your chest. Like,
Isn't
oh.
humility the same as humbling yourself?
Yes.
And when you humble yourself, what does that mean again? Sorry.
You get lifted up. God lifts
Are you
up those
trying
who
to
are
say
humble.
that your parents should be humble as well?
No, I was
Oh.
just asking for the definition.
Oh, okay. Right. Can we move on?
Yeah,
I
let's
think we
move
can
on.
have
That was a
another.
sharp
We can have
tangent.
another session on parents at a
That will
later
be,
date.
everyone will come with their list of complaints.
Cool. So we've gotten to the part of the story where obviously he's been out of the fish, and so God. So I'm now on Jonah chapter 3. Josh, can you please read verse 1? Eman, can you read verse 2? I will read verse 3. And LB, can you read verse 4?
Just first one.
Yes, please.
Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah the second time, saying,
Arise arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and preach to it the message that I tell you. So Jonah arose and went to Nineveh according to the word of the Lord. Now Nineveh was an exceedingly great city, a 3-day journey in extent.
And Jonah began to enter the city on the first day's walk. Then he cried out and said, Yet 40 days, and Nineveh shall be overthrown.
So as soon as he came out of his assignment didn't change.
Yeah.
God said, all this time that you wasted, I go back to what I told you to do. But it's so funny because the word of the Lord came the second time, and he said to Jonah, arise. And Jonah arose. Like, he did not do any second guessing. He didn't say if, but, when, why, how.
No
He
Tarshish
didn't say,
this time.
no, do you get what I mean? Didn't go to Tarshish instead. He just went on his 3-day journey. Guys, oh no, I actually took a picture of it. So you can see the distance from Nineveh, and because I was like, I'm not bringing my Bible here, but so basically in this little area here is where Nineveh is, and like he was basically like in this area, and Nineveh is here. So let's say he was like here somewhere. This is where Tarshish is.
Jonah, Jonah, man, like
This is where Nineveh was. And
First,
this is where Nineveh is, and this is where like
you say
he
not
was.
you
Nineveh is like there.
Mm-hmm.
And Joppa is here, so this is where he was coming from. So it's literally like this was the journey that he was meant to do, but this is where Tarshish is, and this is where. So God told him to go here, and he wanted to go there.
Sorry, what?
Yeah,
God told him to go.
to here,
Mm-hmm.
and he went to go there
But why?
because he didn't
wanna
want to
go.
obey.
He said, "I'm disobeying God." That's what he said.
You know what I just deep though? Like sometimes even in our disobedience, sometimes we don't get second chances.
What?
And it's actually crazy because Jonah got a second chance this time. Luckily, like he did die in the fish, but for some people they might have actually died in the fish. Or for some people, like the people that he was going to speak to, he might have not met them on the way.
Yeah.
Like it's actually crazy because like disobedience is go on. No, carry on.
No, it just when you said it just reminded me of, you know, in the book of Acts when they lied about the money that they and then they literally died instantly like that. Like
John, you are. That's so funny. But yeah, it's crazy. Like, and I think that's again, it comes to that scripture about like not taking grace for granted.
Exactly.
Because it's like Jonah got a second chance, but not every time will God give you a second chance. Because it's like your parents, right? Like when your younger siblings, they get away with more things. Reason why? Because they're younger, number one, and they've got less experience. But at a certain age, your parents expect you with a certain level of maturity to do something. Based on that maturity and experience, of my relationship with my mum, to know that I should do something because she's not at home. It's the same like with us and God. Like someone might be a baby Christian and might make a mistake and get away with it. But when you've like been with Christ for a long time and God knows you know the right things to do and you choose to do the wrong thing, sometimes the consequence of your action will have like a more detrimental effect compared to someone who is still like newly born in the faith. So again, it's about like relationship and like maturity, spiritual.
That when he was a child, you think that.
That's legit. Legit. Like so, just be obedient, guys.
Yeah, we've all got to be obedient, right? So obviously, in the end, he does what God asked him to do, which is to cry out to Nineveh and tell them. So basically, he said that. So he said, then he cried out and said, yet 40 days and Nineveh shall be overthrown. So that's basically what he said. Obviously, because of their wickedness, that place was supposed to perish, essentially. And I think because that's what he prophesied, obviously, that's what God told him to say, innit? And I think that's what he wanted to happen. And then, obviously, it's like he was a prophet, in a sense. And it's like, well, he said something, so it needs to come to pass, essentially. But the people of Nineveh heard what Jonah had said, and they basically turned away from their wicked ways, and they decided to, even the king declared a fast for like the whole city, and they basically repented and they were like worshipping God and all this kind of stuff. And so God saw their sacrifice, and he saw that they turned away from their evil ways, and he then kind of like, he didn't invoke the punishment that they were supposed to receive. He didn't do it because he was like, oh yeah, this is what I wanted. Do you know what I mean? That's the thing about God. Like, some of us will disobey, will go off track. Like, these Nineveh people, they were wicked. They were actually wicked. But then you even us all think, no, yeah, punish them. Like, you know, like how we feel towards slave masters and all this kind of stuff. Like, it's like, yeah, these people deserve a punishment, but like they turned away. Like, it's like they became new people, and God saw that, and He was like, yes, this is what I wanted. This is actually what I wanted. So you know what? Yeah, the punishment that I did intend for you, I'm not going to do it anymore, because their works basically changed God's mind. And surely, you know, as children of God, if there's somebody wicked that is doing up rubbish and nonsense, and then they turn away and they're now living a holy life, we're supposed to be happy. Yeah. But what did Jonah do? Jonah was angry. Jonah heard that God basically forgave the people of Nineveh, and he was angry. He was like, yeah, I'm not having this. Like, he was just like, I'm gonna die, and all these suicidal thoughts, and yeah, just came back and all this kind of stuff. And
sorry, you said suicidal.
Yeah, he kept on saying that he would rather die. Maybe not suicidal thoughts, but he was very suicidal. He was just like, yeah, I want to die. Yeah, it says that it displeased Jonah and he became exceedingly angry.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And it's chapter 4. He says, therefore now, Lord, please take my life from me. For it is better for me to die than to live. Dramatic.
And like, the worst part is, he said, for I know that you are a gracious and merciful God, slow to anger and abundant in loving kindness, one who relents from doing harm. Therefore now, O Lord, please take my life from me. How can you know you know the nature of God? I'm just trying to understand Jonah's mindset, you know. But I feel like it's so easy for us to laugh at Jonah and be like, oh, Jonah, work one, and all this kind of stuff. But sometimes we could be a Jonah because we could be like, we all know, we're all confident of God's nature, but we still have those moments where we think things that we're not supposed to think.
What?
Yeah. We treat people how they probably shouldn't be treated. There have been times, you know, when you like go out and you're with your friends and like you see someone and all you have to do is look at your friend and it's like we're all thinking the same thing and we're now laughing at somebody else. That's just not, it's not cute. Yeah, it's not cute. There have been times where sometimes I don't even look at anybody, it's me, myself and my thoughts. And I'm just like, oh, probably should have thought that. Like Rachel, actually, no, God forgive me, cleanse my mind. We've nearly finished reading basically the whole of Jonah in such a quick way. So we're going to go from Jonah chapter 4 from verse 4, and we're going to go round in a circle like this. So we can all get it in NKJV because that's what we've been reading in it so far. Sorry to the NLT warrior.
Who's NLT?
Is it not you?
No.
Oh, NIV.
Yeah.
The Lord said, is it right for you to be angry? So Jonah went out of the city and sat on the east side of the city. There he made himself a shelter and sat under it in the shade till he might see what would become of the city.
Next chapter.
And the Lord God prepared a plant and made it come up over Jonah, that it might be shade for his head to deliver him from his misery. So Jonah was very grateful for the plant.
But as morning dawned the next day, God prepared a worm, and it so damaged the plant that it withered.
And it happened when the sun arose that God prepared the east wind, and the sun beat on Jonah's head, so that he grew faint. Then he wished death for himself, and said, it is better for him to die than to live.
Then God said to Jonah, is it right for you to be angry about the plant? And he said, it is right for me to see, it doesn't even make sense. Be angry even to death.
But the Lord said, you have had pity on the plant for which you have not laboured, nor made it grow, which came up in a night and perished in a night. And should I not pity Nineveh, that great city, in which are more than 120,000 persons who cannot discern between their right hand and their left, and much livestock? And then that's how the story of Jonah ends, because God is literally saying, I am God. But
Yeah, that's just so funny. Like, you know how we spoke about logic, but God literally explains to Jonah his logic. Does that make sense? Like, sometimes our logic and God's logic doesn't always align, which is crazy, but it's interesting.
Abby, do you have anything to add?
I don't know, it kind of reminds me of the story, you know, when, I can't remember which chapter it's in of the Bible, but it's like when the slave and the master, like, he owed his master some money and he was forgiven for it, but then the slave went to now go and trying to get money from someone else, and it's like, hold on,
Oh God.
I've just forgiven you, so why will you not now go and forgive someone else?
Listen,
So it kind of reminds me of Jonah, like, I don't know why he's moving as if saying he's
as if he didn't just
a
come
big
from
man,
the whale.
as if he didn't just get washed up on the shore.
Yeah.
Like, it's very, very mad that he had that whole experience and was still like, I'm angry that he forgave these people.
Can I just add, you know what, it's like when we try to differentiate like the different levels of sin, because Jonah, in a sense, he did sin because he disobeyed God, but the other people in Nineveh were disobedient as well, but apparently according to Jonah, his disobedience wasn't that bad.
That's dangerous ground to be thinking.
Do you know what I mean? Like, when you try to like what's that, put your sin in like a hierarchy. You try to put your sin in a hierarchy. Well, they've done this, and so they're clearly worse off than I am. But disobedience is disobedience. Period. Like, legit.
I feel like it just like demonstrates the human nature. Like, because he would think, obviously, let's say they were killing people, they were doing this, they were doing that. He's like, how could you still forgive them? He probably wanted them to, or he did want them to perish. But it's like, you got to, all they got to say was like, how many people? Like, 120,000, and Jonah's not seeing like how many people would have perished. He just wants what he wants. Yeah, so it just like demonstrates the human nature.
Well, God was the one that like caused it to come up and then caused it to die. So in the same way, it basically shows that he has authority to determine, you know, who should live, who should die, who should be punished, who shouldn't be punished, etc.
The plan. So, obviously, it was hot. God gave Jonah a plant, and when the plant kind of like died and stuff, he was upset that the plant died. But it was like you care, like even in the thing it said that you have regard and you care for this plant. You don't care for the people of Nineveh. Kind of similar to what you just said now, because in God's, like, how can he have so much regard for a plant that he didn't even labor for, whereas there's hundreds and thousands of persons that God has actually labored for? Do you get what I mean? Like, these are God's children. God doesn't care. Like, you could be doing the most, but in God's eyes, you are still my child. So if there's anything that you are willing to do to come back to me, so that I don't have to punish you, then I will take it. Do you know what I mean? But you can tell that Jonah clearly didn't have the compassion that God had. He didn't share in God's heart for God's people. He only cared about the fact that these people are wicked, and so because they're wicked, it only remains that way, as if like they're unforgivable. But we know that God, but he knows, even Jonah knows that God is merciful. And that's why, in a way, maybe Jonah knew that they were going to get forgiven.
That's why he did want that.
Yeah, which is why he wanted to flee to Tarshish in the first place. Go on.
It's just funny. Isn't this like, everything Jonah's feeling, right? It's like how you'll feel when you try to serve God from like your flesh. When like you don't actually allow the Holy Spirit to change you. It's very easy to think about it from a me selfish perspective, because sometimes, right, being a servant, we understand that we're no longer a slave to the flesh but a slave to the Spirit, right, in Romans. But sometimes like your flesh can like feel a certain way about things. So like for Jonah, his feelings are justified to him, but you need to have compassion to serve. You need to like love. We spoke about the definition of love, like it's patient, it's kind, blah blah blah. Even Jesus, he came to preach to people that even sometimes they didn't want to change, and they were just using him like just to be healed and just going away like he was some sort of magician. But it's like when you're serving God, like you genuinely have to share in Christ's heart for people, because it's like he's preaching to these people to be changed, but he actually doesn't want them to.
Exactly.
And it's actually mind blowing.
I think Jonah didn't understand his assignment properly, because technically God only told him to go to Nineveh to cry out to the people about their wickedness, and that because of your wickedness they're actually going to perish. And I think that's basically what God was going to do. So I don't think Jonah expected them to hear the warning and change. I think he thought that they were just going to continue being wicked, and then God would just like do like good riddance. Do you get what I mean? But that's not what happened. But yeah, Iman, what do you think about these last 10 verses that we just read?
Jonah's is quite a stubborn person, to be honest.
Yeah.
Reminds me a bit of myself. Not too much. You know, you don't always get what you want. Sometimes, you know, you have to give in and listen to the higher authority. You know. So I'm trying to link this back to myself personally.
The clothes.
The parents thing, innit?
You just have to fold the
You
clothes
just have to, you know. So,
Yeah.
No,
And then very quickly, what's one thing, that really stuck out to you about the story of Jonah, and how would you use that to advise yourself? We're not even going to do it to advise other people, to advise you as an individual, because I know some of us like to disobey God. So.
Obviously, with this one, I thought it was a bit tricky, innit? Because we could all say like, we need to be obedient and stuff like that. Because we all know, like, we're lucky, if you know what I mean. Like, when we disobey God and we're still here, you know. Certain people have it different, where God's just able to do anything, you know, kill you at any moment or anything like that. Like, take the life He gave you. But like, look at it like this, like, you know, you're supposed to obey God, but you struggle to do it. Am I really gonna tell myself now, like, I need to obey God because He can take my life away? And then bearing in mind, knowing that I'm still gonna now disobey Him. Like, that's why it's so hard.
That's why I said you've got to give the advice to yourself. Because
Obviously,
you can't. Because if you know that you're going to disobey God, that's a problem, isn't it?
Easy is a problem.
So, what advice? Obviously, I'm not saying that after today you're just never going to disobey God ever again. But what kind of advice can you give to yourself that you can take some positive steps into more obedience as opposed to disobedience? Let's focus on obedience. Let's focus on the positive and not the negative. Because if we focus on the disobedience, then we'll just continue disobeying. But what steps can you... Okay, actually, let me change the question. What have you learned from Jonah, and what advice would you give to yourself so that you can obey God more and be in the good side rather than the bad side?
You know, I feel like it just depends on where your heart is at, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So as long as your heart never actually loses its way, then you're more or less alright. Not there, but you're safe for now, if that makes sense. If your heart was to lose its way, then you've got a serious problem. But like, just make sure you maintain a steady level of your heart being for God and not for anything else. And obviously, also we could think of ways to actually help ourselves, even though we could get lazy sometimes and we might not want to do it. Maybe if we try and, you know, encourage ourselves, give ourselves that extra push, then like we could actually overcome the problems. Yeah, that's what I...
Cool, thank you. That was good. Thank you. Josh?
I'd probably, like, if it was to myself, so I'd probably like look at it from a respect standpoint, like for God to give His own Son to die for me, and then I'm gonna come and tell Him, nah, God, I don't want to do it. So I don't think that's the right thing for me to do, because the way I've been brought up, you know, you like, if someone does something for you, it's because they love you. It's not because anything else. You know what I mean? So I think, because if it was me, if God, let's say if God was like, give this person money, if I was to sit there and contemplate and think about it, I probably wouldn't do it. So like the moment I hear it, I'd probably give it without thinking, because that leaves like space for me to start. Oh, why should I give them the money? And you know what I mean. So I think that's what I'd say.
Thank you. That was really helpful.
Yeah. So I think the story pretty much accentuates like the futility of running away from God. And I guess like it also shows that it's important to have compassion for others. I think if you like make a deliberate attempt to like ask God, oh, can you put me in situations where I can grow in empathy? Then that way when you see people that are suffering in the future, you're like, oh, okay, I can understand where they're coming from, etc. And so I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to kind of expect to have like such a high standard for them. If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's really good. But be careful with those kinds of prayers, because when he puts you in that situation, don't complain there. Don't come and say,
you need to brace yourself, obviously.
Because people will say, Satan, but you didn't know that you're praying for patience. But no, that's a good point. Abby?
I feel like for me, what Joshua said was actually very relevant to me. Like when you hear God tell you to give, like you just have to obey. Like I don't know. I feel like after I gave the testimony or whatnot I call it about like not listening to God and then having to actually end up staying at home, blah blah blah. Like nowadays, I'm actually really trying to just listen to the voice of God. And like on Sunday, I heard the voice of God tell me to give more offering than I intended to give originally. And you know what, it just like, but like, I just had to put it in the envelope, shut my eyes, and just give it. And obviously, like, it's not like I'm expecting something back, but I've had literally, it was so crazy how it happened a couple of years ago. I was young, I didn't have a job, didn't have money, nothing, gave everything I had. And then that same week, like one of my uncles just blessed me with money, like randomly. So it's just them ones where you always be rewarded, but not, you shouldn't be doing things just purely for rewards. That's where we have to be kind of careful, I think. But at the end of the day, like the reward that we have is like being able to wake up every day. Like I know those ones that drive. I don't think people really deep how, deep it actually is. Like any split second, I would get distracted very, very easily. There's so many times where I've been looking this way, I look up and the car is right in front of me and I have to slam on the brakes or something like that, and that's like protection. Like God's protecting us all the time.
That's true.
So even if we don't physically get like, oh yeah, someone's blessing me, giving me money, like our protection on a daily basis, us waking up is enough of a gift, to be honest. I think that's what it is. So yeah, like I'm just, me personally, just trying to listen to the voice of God and actually obey it, like, so that it will be well with me.
I'm really proud of you, Abby. I can already see the growth and I'm so happy.
God is even more proud.
Yes, it's true.
LB?
For me, is not trying to use logic to sometimes like decipher God's plan, because again we see like in Jonah's mind it didn't make sense, God trying to save Nineveh, but to God it made sense. And sometimes like processing your emotions, like I don't think it's a bad thing. Like I'm sure Jesus didn't feel like going to the cross, right? Just as much as the way Jonah didn't feel like going to Nineveh. But sometimes it's okay to process your emotions, allow yourself to process what you're going through, but still be obedient, if that makes sense. Because like you said, the consequence of disobedience, well, I'm not trying to face that. So yeah, just not allowing your emotions to outweigh your obedience to God. That's the key thing. And just doing that practically as well, because that happens in the small stuff. So like we said with the whole parents thing, we know that God wants us to be respectful to our parents, but in the midst of the emotions, like your parents know how to press your buttons in ways that, and because it's your parents, you can't respond how you would to like anybody, because it's like like you just have to, so it's like in those moments, like don't allow your emotions to allow you to outweigh God's obedience, if that makes sense. When you know he wants you to I was about to say disrespect, he wants you to respect your parents, do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's just that emotions one that's like tricky. Go on.
I was even in school, I was listening to a scripture by T. Jakes, and he was talking about like how Jesus was how Jesus was going to the cross and how he was crying and praying, and he was so nervous that he was like sweating blood.
Mm.
And then there was a verse that said he set his face to go towards the cross. So it's like Jesus basically, how do I say, it's like went against his own nature. Like he set his face, so everything that he was like experiencing, all his emotions, he put that behind him and just focused on what God was saying. So that's what I said.
No, that's good.
That's good.
Thank you for sharing that. As for me, I think it's about discerning between my will and God's will. I think, because I was going to say the thing about emotions, but you said it now. But I think it's okay. I think sometimes when we disobey God, it has a lot to do with our emotions. Like even me recently, I went through something, and I was like, yeah, there was a lot of emotions there, and it was very hard to see or hear what God was trying to do because my judgment was clouded by my emotions. So I think it's really important to be able to discern between your will and God's will. It's okay to have your own will, but it's not okay if you put your will above God's will. Like, because at the end of the day, you have your own will, but you have to sacrifice your will and let God's will happen, if that makes sense. And if you are, in order to prevent disobedience, and like if God is asking you to do something, it's okay to express to him how it makes you feel. Do you get what I mean? But again, don't let your feelings now prevent you from obeying God. Do you get what I mean? Like, so just, it's okay to be like, God, this is how I feel right now. I know that this is what you want me to do. I know that this is probably the right thing to do, but this is how I feel because I'm a petty person and like however it is that you want to communicate with God. And then just commit it into God's hands, and then just be like, the boldness, the grace, the humility, the love, the compassion, everything that I need, the resources that I need to obey you, give it to me. And let's be going. Come with me as I'm going. Do you get what I mean? Because at the end of the day, like, it's either you, like I said before, it's either you trust God or you don't. So if you trust him, you know that he would never do something to harm you. I've been in situations where God has told me to give money and stuff like that, and I'm just like, I don't want to do it. But then I'll still do it because, like, I'm like, you know what? No, I'm going to do this because I know you want me to do it. And then literally, like, that week, I get more money than what I put in the first place. Do you get what I mean? Like, is it money? Like, God will look at you like, is it money? Because I'm God. Like, God is like, I am God. Like, I know and see everything. I can, this man that hates you, I can change his heart and he can favor you. Like, do you get what I mean? So just know who God is, if that makes sense, in the grand scheme of life. But yeah, like, that's about it.
That was really
and I just really kind of wanted to emphasize here that even though it was a lot to deal with, like Jonah's disobedience, but it was also about Jonah's heart posture. And it's really important that as children of God, that we share in God's heart for other people, even sometimes, you know, above your own needs as well. That's what Jesus did. That's the only reason why he was able to actually do what he did on the cross, because none of us would have been able to do that. But you need to have compassion and love for people. Love is one of the most important, it is the most important commandment in our faith, right? Because God is love, and so it can never fail. So that's that. I hope you guys are all blessed. I hope you all learned something from the book of Jonah podcast. Make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed the Level Up Essex podcast. That's it for this evening, or for today, whenever you're listening, afternoon, morning. But yeah, be blessed and obey God. Amen.
Amen.